for Sloan. Lomax with an oh, what have we just seen?
G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Dill, that's Stu, and we are the Fantasy Bros. We are excited to announce that we have partnered with GameDay Squad this NRL season to bring you all you need to know for GDS Rugby League in 2025. Stu, trials continued over the weekend, and surprise, surprise, the Warriors are at the top of the table. Who would have thought that would happen? Look, I'm keen to see them play come the Vegas round. A lot of hype around them, and I won't say it, but we all know we're thinking it. It could be our year. But before we get there, we've got to let viewers know what to expect from us this season.
Yeah, g'day, Dill. G'day, viewers. G'day, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I'm absolutely pumped as well. And, mate, I think you can enjoy it while it lasts. I don't think it's going to last that long. But, yeah, looking forward to Vegas because your boys come up against a pretty tough team over there in round zero, don't they? Mate, absolutely pumped for not just the season to kick off, but also for a couple more pre-season videos that we're punching out for our viewers and our listeners. We'll be bringing 3 positional ranking videos. This is obviously number 2 of those 3 videos, and we'll pump out a number of shorts as well to get you updated with some of our favorite players heading into the start of that season. During the season, we'll also come live to you every single Wednesday night. We'll discuss all of the important start and sit options, any questions that you might have as well, and we'll reveal who we're going to play in our champion squads. So if you haven't already, make sure you're following us and subscribe to us on all of our socials. We're on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. That's at FantasyBros AU. And we're going to have a lot of pack giveaways, not just during the preseason, but throughout the season as well. So make sure you are tuning into our socials.
And just talking about giveaways, we will be talking about that very soon as well. But before we do, mate, I cannot rip in. And look, it's not too late for everyone else to rip in either. You've still got plenty of time. Go and download the app or visit the GameDay Squad website, create your account, and use that promo code FBRL25. You'll be rewarded with 3 9-player common packs just for putting in that promo code. Plus, you can use either of our referral codes. You can see them on screen there to get even more packs, in addition to the multitude of free bronze starter packs as well. So you're going to have plenty there to get your classic, your starter, and maybe even a challenger team going. We did open some packs the other night, and a couple of common packs. We had a few diamonds in there as well, so they are always handy. Look, our referral codes are on screen, but they are also 31Z, 92QY4, and 5N005. JTO. So you can put those in as well. And as I said, you can get some more packs just for doing so. So why wait? There's plenty of cash and pack prizes up for grabs. And that can be won each and every round of the NRL season, as well as obviously some season-long prizes there. So sign up, join us for plenty of fun, and make sure that you tune in each week for some of those giveaways. But as we're talking about giveaways, it wouldn't be a Fantasy Bros show without a few giveaways. We love giving away some free stuff simply for you tuning in and engaging with our content. And we've got 3 epic prizes again. Look, we have created 3 packs from our top 10 players across each of our positional videos. So we've got a 9-player unique, a 9-player rare, and a 9-player common up for grabs. These packs are not your normal run-of-the-mill packs. They are preloaded with all of our top 30 players, and they could be yours. We are going to make sure that you don't have any Brandon Piakuras in there. You don't have any Karen Forans or maybe even Blake Lorries. I know no one is keen for those cards, but you will get an assortment of GameDay Squad's best players. Mate, can you please let the audience know how they could win those unreal prizes?
Yeah, mate, absolutely unreal prizes. Certainly not one to miss. To enter that giveaway, all they need to do is simply subscribe to our channel on YouTube and comment who they think their top 3 halves are going to be for the 2025 season. If they do that for our 3 positional shows, the forwards that's already dropped, and then the backs episode that comes out in a couple of days' time, they'll be able to earn up to 3 entries into that giveaway. We'll do that draw during that first live show on Wednesday, the 26th. And I think last time in checking, there was only about 7 or 8 entries. So with some packs, of incredible value and some of the best packs you'll ever see opened up or handed out, I think the community is going to have to jump on board pretty soon and put their hat into the ring because, there's only a few entries in there and someone might be able to clean up and win multiple packs. So jump onto our YouTube and make sure you comment your top 3 halves. Dill, enough of the admin sort of stuff, mate. Let's rip into this halves episode. So for the halves, we only have 2 players on field and 1 on the bench. So we spoke about the forwards last episode, and we're able to speak about 3 separate positions and then a number of players that we could field both on field and on the bench. But it's a little bit different in the halves position where we can only choose 3, and we have some really, really good players to pick from. So we're going to try to make things a little bit easier for you at home and make sure you're picking the best players, not just during the preseason, but each week as well. So for us, we mostly look at the halves that are the dominant playmakers at their club, someone who has their hands on the ball a lot, and certainly in comparison to their halves partner. We also look for someone that kicks the ball a lot in general play because you get a lot of points just for kicking the ball downfield. And we also want to make sure that we're picking someone who runs the ball a lot, not someone who just sort of catches and passes and allows other people to create outside them. So someone who also kicks goals for their club is an added bonus as well. So all of those things combined, we've tried to put together our top 10 rankings, and we're going to let you know who we have in our top 10. And we'll probably kick things off from our 10 through 6. But before we do that, Dill, let's have a quick look at some of our stats from last season. We've got a couple of players that topped their particular stat columns. Do you want to run us through those high-performing players?
Yeah, so as you can see from last season, obviously Lukey Brooks there had the most games played of all halves with 26. So he obviously moved over to Manly a little while ago and had a pretty decent season over there and was able to stay healthy all season, which is pretty important, particularly in GDS when you are aiming for that season long. Obviously, as we spoke about as well, there's opportunities there if your halves do get injured that you can wipe the slate clean and start again each and every week. But any halves that aren't injured are always good. Obviously, we saw Nathan Cleary last season. He did have the highest average score, but that was only across a limited number of games because he had that injury. So just on Nathan Cleary, he did have an average score for GDS of 71.72, and he topped all halves there across with that average score. And then Jerome Hughes over at the Melbourne Storm was able to rack up the most points in 1,442.77. Obviously, Jerome Hughes pretty dominant last season. Munster was in and out of the team, so a lot of that work had to be shouldered with Jerome Hughes. So hopefully he has another big one again. Alrighty, so those players obviously are going to have a massive season, and we're going to be looking at a few of those in our teams throughout the season. But let's take a closer look at our consensus halves rankings for 2025, so 10 through to 6. And Stu, would you like to kick us off with those 10 through to 6?
Sure can. Just a quick shout out to Lukey Brooks there. He doesn't get enough recognition in videos like this, but he was the only half to play all 26 games. So good on you, Brooks. I don't know if we'll be talking about you too much more during this episode, but hey, look, if he's taking the field and you're short on cards, then why not? You know, he's got some quality in his game, but he'll also back up each and every week. All righty, let's get on to the important stuff. Our top 10 rankings from 10 through to 6, as you can see on screen, but for the audio listeners as well. We've got Lachlan Galvin ranked at 10, Daly Cherry Evans at 9, Dylan Brown at 8, Mitchy Moses at 7, and Jaden Campbell there at number 6. Still, I might start with number 10 in Lockie Galvin, and we'll bounce back and forth, and then we'll get to our top 5 shortly. So this is our consensus ranking, meaning we've put our ranks together, and we've certainly agreed on a number of these players and also disagreed on a few, but we've tried to settle at a top 10 that sort of suits us both. So as always, let us know in the comments section what we got wrong and what you agree with, and certainly who you would have had separately to us, and also who your top 3 are. So mate, Lockie Galvin had an absolute stellar season in 2024, didn't he? At just 18 years of age. It was actually impressive just how much he was able to match it with the big boys, and he didn't look out of place at all. He'll be a star in the future for sure. And we're already talking about, some representative honours not too far around the corner. Just really hope that second year syndrome doesn't find him because the Tigers are looking really, really good with some really good recruits. And then Luai alongside Galvin, they're actually forming a really nice combination there. And that team's going to have a lot of success in the years to come. We know that second year syndrome can get some players early on in their career, but Galvin just looks like a completely different player to some of these blokes. He just looks outstanding, and he looks like he'll only get better and better each and every game. His base for a young half is really, really good, averaging about 19 tackles and 130 meters per game. He didn't kick a lot, average only about 170 or just less than. But Luai sort of only kicked 240 meters per game alongside Cleary as well. So there's an expectation that Galvin could probably put his boot to the ball a little bit more, given, there's probably 2 or 3 more 100 meters of kicking meters between those two that probably need to come from somewhere. So one of them's going to get an uptick. It might be shared evenly, but I think some of that output can certainly increase. And he only scored 4 tries last year as well. For someone that takes the line on and runs the ball a lot, I wouldn't be surprised to see if he can build on that tally of 4 as well this year.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to talk about. Both his ability to run at the line and take on some of those big forwards and potentially use some footwork to get around him. But he's not afraid of contact either. And we saw last season he had 47 tackle breaks, which sort of puts him in the middle sort of range for halves. But I feel like that might improve as well. The other thing you touched on that I really like is base stats. So almost 130 run meters, almost 20 tackles a game, and 165 odd kick meters a game. That gave him a similar base to the one and only Nathan Cleary last season. So if he's sort of getting at that base, and obviously, we know what Nathan can do in terms of attack to add on to that base in his ceiling. But if Galvin comes out and does that again, and then he's also got that halves partner Luai who can create, and that'll be the question marks over who sort of takes the role there and runs with it, and what impact sort of Luai has. But I feel like there's opportunity there for Galvin to really step up from last season. Obviously, like you said, the question marks are over those second-year syndrome and whether he does come out. He's still young. He's 19 this season. So I feel like when you're young, you've sort of got nothing to lose and you just go hard and you play hard. And I feel like he's in a really good spot. So I think he's one of the hottest young talents, obviously, in the NRL. And his cards are pretty rare at the moment. There's not many out there out and about. So if you've got a card of his, I feel like he could be a pretty decent pod in the right kind of matchup. Alrighty, moving to our number 9. And look, it's Delhi Cherry Evans. And does this bloke age, or is he just an absolute machine? Last season, we probably talked about a little bit, and we thought it might have been it for DCE. However, he just proved that that age is, or that number, it just means very little. He averaged 55 GDS points per game last season, so he was ranked 7th of all halves. However, for total points, he was only ranked 2nd, just behind Jerome Hughes, like we talked about. So he was able to rack up those points pretty quickly and at a consistent rate. The other thing I loved, and you touched on earlier, is that base stat with the kicking meters. He averaged almost 400 kicking meters per game. He had 80 run meters per game, and then he had about 18 tackles per game as well. So his 55 average was built off that about 38 to 40 point base each and every week. And we know Manly are an attacking side. We talked about that last show with Hamole Olakuatu. And that, particularly that right side, is just so dominant. And if he can get to that right side and get a few nice passes to Hamole, out the back to Turbo, there's anything that could happen. So I feel like old man DCE, he might have one more round in him, one more season in him, and then maybe he can ride out into the sunset after this year.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. His average did fall down a little bit compared to that 2023 season. He was close to 63 there, so about an 8-point drop. But yeah, that upside really comes from that right edge, doesn't it? With Hamole short or Tommy at the back, and DCE also gets across the field a little bit as well and links up on the left side with some of those players too. So he's an absolute competitor. He still played 24 games. We know Lukey Brooks, there he is. He gets another mention, played 26, but Cherry Evans obviously missed 2 through Origin as well. So even though he's pretty old, his body's still holding up really nicely. There might be an occasion, where injury gets the better of him. But look, while he's taking the field, we know he's going to get the base. We know he's going to get plenty of kick meters. We know Manly are one of the best attacking sides in the comp when they're on, and that right edge with Hamole and then Garrick outside him and Saab speed on the right, and then Turbo threatening both out the back and, with that inside ball or turning him underneath, that becomes really, really dangerous where Cherry Evans can cash in. I think the one big upside that won't happen in round 1 is always when if and when Ruben Garrick goes down injured. We saw him get a couple of head knocks last season and he missed a few games through injury, and that just meant Cherry Evans takes the kicking tee and scores a few more points with his boot. So there's a bit of upside there. If there's a match where Ruben Garrick isn't fit to play and the Sea Eagles have a relatively soft matchup, that's an occasion where I might look to slip Cherry Evans into my side. But yeah, look, he goes all right for an old boy. He'll get you plenty of points. He won't really go on that massive, huge score, but his base is always pretty good as well. So his floor is always pretty high. Whereas some of these players that can go massive also have quite a low base in comparison. Mate, we got Dill Brown there at number 8. we sort of tossed and turned over whether or not we'd have him or Mitch Moses higher. There's probably an argument to have either of those at 8. But we'll just talk about Dill Brown for now. He still played the 24 games last year, but didn't manage to average over 50. His average really takes a dive playing alongside Moses, I've seen as well. But he has shown he can accumulate fantasy points pretty quickly. His base is pretty nice as well for a half. He makes 20 tackles a game. He breaks 2.8 tackles a game. And he runs about 130 meters and sets up a try a game as well. He did only find the try line on 5 occasions last season. But I still think because he scored 11 times in 2023, he needs to find more of that running game and take on the line a bit more. And we saw him do that in the trial straight away from his first or second touch of the footy. He sort of cut off his left foot and dived over past some pretty soft defense. So he'll definitely be a top 10 averaging player. Again, it just really depends if he can kick on and maybe find a good combination with Moses where they're both capitalizing on their sides of the field and both scoring large amounts of points in chunks. They both like to run the ball a lot. They both like to call for it on the final play. But we know Mitchy Moses does a lot more of the kicking in general play. And I think that might be why we've sort of got him a fraction higher, even though he's probably set to lose the kicking duties to Zach Lomax.
Yeah, and the one thing I really like about Dylan Brown is, and you touched on it, is he likes to take on the line with ball in hand. And last season, he actually had the most meters gained of any half. So he had 3,139 meters gained across all of his games. So we know that we get those base stats there, and they're made up of meters gained, tackle, and then those kick meters as well. And as you touched on there, so if we've got Dylan Brown running the ball a lot, then there's plenty of opportunity for him to slide through the line like we saw. And obviously then also potentially putting a short ball in if he draws in a couple of defenders. The thing that you touched on as well is the differences in stats when Moses is back. And last season, the only thing that really changed for Dylan Brown was that increase in kicking meters when Moses wasn't on the field. So that's the only thing we really saw different. If anything, potentially Dylan Brown had a few more attacking stats when Mitch Moses was on the field as well, which is quite interesting. He probably just takes a little bit of heat off Dylan Brown when he's got his halves partner there, and he just knows he can maybe try and create a few more things. So, yeah, like you said, we did sort of and ah about where Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses fit into the top 10. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if, the Parramatta Eels have a massive season and both of them even maybe potentially slide into that top 5 sort of area as well, purely because they work so well together and they can bounce off each other so well. But yeah, talking about Mitch Moses, he comes in at number 7. And as you can see, he only played those 7 games last season. He did average 53.73. And that came off the back, obviously, of a lot of kicking meters, a lot of run meters, and then the tackles as well. So he had 470 kick meters per game. He had 86 run meters, and then he had about 16 tackles per game as well. So it's a great base for him to work off and then look for those opportunities to attack. The other thing that we touched on is the upside of halves who kick goals, and he kicked 2.5 goals per game, and then he had 1 try assist every 2 games as well. So that there's definitely upside there for Moses to kick on and have a few more with a few more games under his belt, and obviously a big preseason leading into this season.
Yeah, that biceps rupture was pretty tough to watch, and you can see his game really took a bit of a dip on his return. He did play 5 games after returning from that long break from injury, and his run game really suffered. He wasn't really eager to take the line on as much as he normally would, and so his run meters fell off. His tackle numbers fell off as well. So, look, to average 53.73 with those 5 games back from biceps injury, when the season for the Eels was done, when he still wasn't fully confident in his own ability to run and put that shoulder and the arm on the line, a 54 point average isn't bad at all. So with a full preseason, hopefully feeling a lot more fit and ready to get back to his old running game and making plenty of tackles for his base as well. There's no reason why we can't see an average a little bit closer to 60. I'm not going to start him in my side for the first few rounds. I'm really eager to see how he goes, particularly without Gutherson. He hasn't played a single match for Para without his mate in the fullback jersey alongside him. So that's a pretty interesting stat. We know Parramatta have a really exciting youngster coming through and set to take that number 1 jersey, but just thought that was interesting. The leadership from Gutherson, he's always screaming and expecting really good results from his players. So, that certainly motivates the boys there. And Moses certainly responds when Gutho gives him a spray. So without him alongside him in that huddle or underneath the sticks after letting in a try, I'm not too sure how much heart or passion the Eels are going to have. So certainly one to look out for. And I'll be eager to see how he goes without Gutho. Look, he could even play it much more of a dominant role, knowing that his mate there isn't out the back and takes a lot more on himself. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Something that we probably won't have to wait and see is Jaden Campbell's breakout into stardom. He had a fantastic season last year, averaging 57.98 points, and that was through 15 games. He played a bit around the park, a little bit off the bench in the halves, a couple of games at fullback as well. We think that he's probably going to be lining up in the halves alongside AJ Brimson. He did partner Kieran Foran for most of last season, and he only played alongside Foran in the halves as well. So he could have a new halves partner in Brimson. We're not too sure exactly how much they'll impact each other, if at all, but it certainly won't necessarily be as good as Foran, who loves giving early ball to the men outside him and then to also the creative players in his team as well. We know Brimson likes to have the ball in his hand, and we know that Brimson likes to run himself. Brimson likes to show and go. Brimson likes to, catch and pass, all those sorts of things as well. So I'm not sure Campbell will get as many clean touches of the ball, but he certainly has the game to get plenty of attacking numbers through tackle breaks and offloads and try assists and line breaks and that sort of thing. So I'm really hoping these two can gel together. I'd be a little bit more confident in Campbell alongside Foran in the halves, but look, it could be really exciting. This Titans outfit could score plenty of points with Keanu Kinney out the back as well, and two really creative and dynamic halves. It's probably another guy that we won't see in round one, and I also won't play in the first couple of rounds, but I'm expecting some big things. We saw him kick the ball as well. He scored a couple of goals toward the end of the season as well. He became that goal kicker too. So if he's kicking goals, he's probably someone we'll be talking about in our third half spot quite frequently through that middle and end part of the season.
Yeah, the thing that gets me with Jaden Campbell, and you talked about his massive attacking upside, but it's actually he's got the lowest average base from last season across majority of the halves, and particularly all the ones that we've talked about. So he had an average base of about 30 GDS points. So you've got to rely on all of those attacking stats, but it is the attacking upside that we love about Jaden Campbell and about all three of the blokes you talked about in their spine, Kinney, Brimson and Campbell. They've all got attacking upside there, and we've seen it. We've seen them carve up the Warriors last season at the back end of the season where they absolutely destroyed them. And Campbell was a big reason for that. The thing, like you said, I do like is he averaged 4.5 tackle breaks per game. He averaged 1 offload per game and then 2.5 goals as well when he was kicking. So I feel like that combination there could be super exciting, and it'll be, as you say, a little bit of a watch. And look, we might miss out on some big scores early on from Campbell, but if we can see that consistency in that, potentially maybe an uptick of his base stats as well, I feel like he will be one that will be playing when that matchup is right. The other thing, we take the trials for what they are. That they are trials, and coaches are looking to try a few things and play around a little bit. But Foran looked pretty good when he was on the field. He had some really good touches, and maybe that might just put some question marks in. Where does Foran line up? Does Brimson go back to the centres maybe, or is that sort of experiment over as well? And then what happens there? Foran comes in and maybe he plays a more backseat role to Jaden Campbell. So there's definitely a sit and watch for Campbell, and you never know, he might just come out and have a massive season. And I think that number 6 spot there for the halves rankings might be a little bit high potentially. We'll have to wait and see. Alrighty, so that is our 10 through 6. Let's jump across to our top 5. Now, these are obviously going to be the players that you play the most throughout the season. As we touched on, you can have your 3 halves there, and then we've got to account for things like buys and origin and injuries then as well. But we think these are going to be the top 5. At number 5, we have Jamal Fogarty. At 4, we've got Burton. 3, Hughes. 2, we've got Nico Hines, and then at number 1, obviously, is Nathan Cleary. Let's start out at number 5, and it's Jamal Fogarty of the Raiders, and he is an absolute kicking machine. We talked about kicking in play. He averaged the most kicking meters last season in play of 544 kicking meters per game. That's almost 20 points just off his boot from kicking in play, which is absolutely ridiculous. You take that and then you add on his 10 try assists that he had across his 14 games. That is some unreal stats for a bloke that, he only played 14 games. He was in and out of the squad. He's a little bit older, but he's got an opportunity now to really build on that 55.5 average from last season, purely off the back of his boot and then off the try assists as well. It's just a matter of him staying healthy for the season. And then I think he's going to be able to find a way into my team almost every second or third week, particularly with those key matchups where I know teams are pretty susceptible to a lot of kicking meters and maybe that left or right side combination, depending on what is happening with opposition defenses.
Yeah, interestingly, we heard that the Raiders rejected a request for Fogarty to test the open market. So it seems like they're really keen to hang on to him down there in the nation's capital, but it also tells us that he might not quite feel at home there. So hopefully that doesn't have too much of a bearing on his points for GameDay Squad. But obviously, he's a professional. He's paid to play footy. So he put his hand up to be tested on the open market. They said no. So hopefully it's back down to business for him, and he rips in and has a big year. Yeah, we saw that he was another one that suffered that biceps rupture like Mitch Moses, and he showed that he could be a top 3 fantasy halfback before that biceps rupture. It was obviously difficult for him to come back from it, just like we saw Mitch Moses as well. But those kicking meters are just absolutely insane, isn't it? The halves and the fullback on that side don't even need to worry about putting boot to ball. The dummy half is always finding Fogarty and is always just roosting it downfield as well. And that can always result in, some try assists and some forced drops and those sorts of things as well. It's pleasing to see that his base is still pretty high as well with those 22 tackles. And I think the Raiders are going to be pretty exciting this season. I think they'll let in a lot of points. I don't think they'll win too many games, but they'll certainly chase a lot of games and have to put on plenty of points to stay competitive. So whenever they're scoring points, Fogarty's kicking goals, and he generally has his fingerprints over some of those tries as well. Like you mentioned, he did get those 10 try assists through 14 matches, but he also went try assist less, if that's a word, in 6 of those matches as well. So if you look at those numbers and 6 of them, he didn't even have an assist. That's still pretty impressive. And we know he was hampered by injury and he played through some pain in a number of those games as well. So hopefully fully fit. We've seen his biceps all over Twitter. So hopefully he's good to go. I'm a little bit biased here being a Raiders fan, but look, we rest a lot of faith on, put a lot of faith in Jamal Fogarty, not just with his boot, but also his clever thinking, his clear head and just setting up some of those young, fast boys around him. It's a really exciting team, and hopefully they can cash in and he'll be at the forefront of that.
Yeah, just before we move on, mate, just before we move on, just having a quick look over at the Stats Center on GameDay Squad, and he had 7,621 kick meters, and he was ranked 6th out of all halves for kick meters, and he only played 14 games. So imagine he plays 24 games. That would be a ridiculous amount of kick meters. Yeah,
that's insane. And the makeup of the team doesn't look like it's going to change too much, and he'll certainly be. It wouldn't be surprised if we see a 5'8" alongside him with the number 0 next to his name in the kick meters column. That's how dominant Fogarty is in that regard. Mate, at number 4, we've got that Bulldog, Matty Burton. I've been really impressed with his last few seasons. Obviously playing a lot of centre at Penrith and then making his move across to the Dogs. And he sort of went pretty quiet about his business last season. We never really, spoke about him as this, exciting standout play. Obviously, we saw how good Jaden Campbell was, and we spoke about him a lot. And we always liked watching him because of how many tackle breaks he could make a game and how many tries he might set up. But Matty Burton still averaged 55.3, and he was so consistent with that average. He only went sub 40 on 3 occasions. He went above 60 on 7 occasions. And all the rest was around that 55-point mark. So you know what you're going to get from Birdo. It might not be that massive, huge, 80 or 90 plus point score, but you're probably never going to really have to worry about that high 20 or that low 30 score either. The Dogs are improving every year, and Birdo's obviously a big reason for that. And there's probably no reason why the Dogs can't go on and continue to improve again this season. He had 2 games last year where he kicked for 690 meters, which is incredible. And I think if he can just minimize some of his demerits, he misses 2.6 tackles a game. He makes an error a game as well. His average would be a lot closer to 60 if he just tidied up some of those areas. And that's a 60-point average without really, setting the world alight, save for, a few big plays, teaming up with Kickow or stepping and sliding through the middle there. So I think Matty Burton's in for a big season, but also someone that you can play with a lot of safety, knowing that his floor is quite high.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing. We obviously talk quite a lot about our approach to GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy, and we like to play it pretty safe most weeks. We don't really go out on a limb and play too many risky plays. And I think Matty Burton is one of those plays that if Hines gets injured or he's got a bye, then you can look to Matty Burton and you can lock in your 50 points and be happy with that. Whereas someone like we talked about earlier, maybe Jaden Campbell, the matchup might not quite be right, and you walk away with 10 or 15 points, you're going to be pretty upset. So I think someone like Burton is just that pure consistent half that we know that we've seen perform at a high level. Obviously, there were concerns last season when he was lining up on the left side and he sort of tucked himself away and didn't get involved very often, particularly in those trial games. But then we saw him come out and sort of share that role in the halves and become a little bit more dominant, which we obviously want to see. The other thing I really love about Birdo is that he's a massive body for a half. And we love that. If he's going to run and take on the line, then he's got the body to be able to break some tackles and slide through. And he's also got that sleight of hand as well. So I think the key for me, like we said, his consistency. He only had 3 games under 250 kick meters. He only had 6 games under 75 run meters. And then he averaged 1 try assist every 2 games as well. Plus, he's got that added bonus of kicking goals potentially too. So I think, like we said, a perfectly safe play. You're not going to get a huge, massive ceiling from him each and every week, but you know what you're going to get from Birdo. So I definitely think he'll be one that we are playing throughout the season when we can't play the likes of Cleary, Hines, or Hughes. And I guess Hughes is the next on our list here. And what a season did he have last year? Mm-hmm. He just exploded onto the scene. He was already a top tier half, but I feel like he took it to another level last season, averaging almost 63 points per game. And he really led the Storm through to that final game. He probably put them on their back a little bit across some games and really took it upon himself to make something happen. But I think the key for me is that Hughes needs a fully fit Munster. Last season, when playing together, almost every stat line for GDS improved for Hughes. Try scoring increased, his line breaks increased, his line break assists increased, and then his tackle breaks increased as well. So obviously, that ceiling can be really improved if we've got a fully fit Munster back. He also improved in his defence as well, which is really interesting. He had a lot less missed tackles when Munster was back in the side. So I'm not sure if it's something to do with the halves pairing or it's something just to maybe to do with confidence. The fact that Cam Munster's back in the side, the rest of the team has a bit more confidence. The other thing I love about Jerome Hughes, we talk about halves that can break tackles. He had the most tackle breaks of all halves last season of 91. So look, if he can maybe hit 100 this season, I think we'll be laughing with Jerome Hughes.
Yeah, mate, he had a massive season, didn't he? He was certainly well deserving of that Dally M medal. My thoughts are slightly different there on Munster taking the field. I know his numbers look really good alongside Munster, but we've got to question how fit Munster was throughout that season. We heard a lot of reports about, how he wasn't able to move as well laterally. He didn't have that same amount of power and explosiveness through those legs, given that injury that was lingering. And maybe that was a reason for Hughes taking on a bit more responsibility and having those numbers increase a little bit. We saw when Munster wasn't there, Tyron Wishart really came onto the scene quite well, and he played really well, demanding a lot of ball, taking the line on a lot. And that's why Jerome Hughes' numbers were down a little bit as well. So Munster needs to look at that and know just how dominant Hughes can be. And Munster doesn't have to do everything like he's tried to do in the past. That's clear evidence last season. Munster just needs to be Munster and organise that left-hand side, use that left foot kicking role. The team's stacked across the park, but Jerome Hughes was just on another level last season, and it'd be silly to take away any of what he was doing from this season as well. So that'll even keep Munster a little bit more fresh as well. And Munster doesn't need to touch the ball as many times as Hughes does, because we saw just how damaging he can be. Another season of hopefully Pappy fully fit. And maybe a little bit stronger, more explosive as well. And this side is just going to be an absolute attacking machine once again. Munster will score plenty of points. Pappy will as well. But Jerome Hughes is probably not going to go too far down from that average from last season. I don't know if he'll quite repeat those efforts, but look, he might go close. And we probably just don't really want Wishart to take the field too many times because he can really take a bit of footy away from him. But how good is that for the Storm to have someone like Wishart as a backup for any match that Munster misses? All right, mate. Top two. We've got a consensus ranking. It's pretty easy for these two, despite our number two not scoring higher than our third ranked Jerome Hughes. But we've got Nicho Hynes back up there at number two this season. We all know he had a bit of a down year compared to some of the lofty heights he reached in 22 and 23, where he averaged above 70. The last season gone, he only averaged 58.06, and his scores really took a hit with Trindle, doing a lot more of the organising, a lot of running and creating as well. In those 4 games without Trindle last season, Hynes scored 124, 72 and 70. And with Trindle alongside him, he only had scores of 70 in 3 of those 11 matches. If we go back to 2023, however, Hynes still scored big alongside Trindle. And I think a lot of the reason for the numbers being so far down last season was we know he had that calf complaint early on in the season. And then we kept hearing about it throughout the season as well. And a lingering calf complaint can be a real big problem for someone that needs to push off a lot, someone that needs a lot of power, particularly, through that kicking, through changing direction, through propping and passing and stepping and accelerating through the line. So I wouldn't have been surprised if maybe it was just a Nicho taking the foot off the gas a little bit, particularly with Trindle playing so well, and maybe him just looking after that leg and nursing it so that the Sharkies could go as deep as possible. But with a full preseason, hopefully, back to feeling fit and fresh. I don't think playing alongside Trindle is going to have too big of an impact if that calf complaint isn't there any longer. I wouldn't be surprised to see those numbers revert a little bit closer back to 2023, even when Trindle was in the side. We know that Nicho's got such a big base as well. He does so many good things with the footy. He kicks a lot. He just accumulates points so quickly. And we know that Sharks are one of the highest scoring teams as well. So with his goal kicking, that just provides safety to that floor that's already really high. And yeah, I'm if that calf's good to go, I think he's in for a massive season and a lot closer to 70.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, really, when you look at his season last season. We talk about being a down year. We talk about the injury issues, yet he still averaged 58 points in GDS, close to 60 points per game. You got to still be pretty happy with that for a down year. I think that the key for me is you touched on a few different things, but the key for me is his average base last season was about 43 per game. So that's a perfect platform then to be able to launch all of his attacking play on top of that. And I see no reason, as long as he's had a full preseason and there's no injury concerns and there's been no events that have popped up that may impact that calf. I think he will return to be one of the best halves, and that's why we've got him at number 2. And I feel like potentially there's a argument to be made that he might even move to number 1 if what we've been talking about in terms of the connection with Brayley, the connection with Adam Fanua-Blake. We've seen Hazelton as well have an unreal try scoring ability. If they come off the back of Hynes, then there's no reason why he couldn't push into that number 1 spot as well. So yeah, I think the key is a fit Hynes means that we'll be playing him pretty much each and every week outside the buys and potentially Origin. I mean, that's probably a fair call to make as well, that he's got every right to potentially push for an Origin spot again. On to our number 1. I don't think we need to do a drum roll at all. We can see it clear as day. We've got the prize card there of one Stewie Moi Moi. It is Nathan Cleary, our number 1 halfback. And there's not a whole lot really to say about him. He's the absolute GOAT of NRL Fantasy. And he's to set and forget as long as he's fit and healthy or not away on representative duty. Averaged over 120 run meters, 360 kick meters per game, add in 17 odd tackles per game, and his base was around 40 GDS points. But then it's all about that addition to the attacking stats as well. You can see he only played 13 games, but he still had 10 try assists, 40 goals, and then 25 tackle breaks as well, which I thought was quite interesting. That we don't really expect Nathan Cleary to make a whole lot of tackle breaks. It's all about his try assists and his ability to pass into space or to throw the long ball. But yeah, the 25 tackle breaks, I think, really makes for an excellent ceiling for who we already know has got a really good base and will kick on and score a ton plus almost each and every week.
Yeah, mate. The only issue is probably around that games played number. We've seen that down below 20 the last few seasons. I guess, fortunately, we get a clean slate in GDS and we get to pick our team brand new every single week if we want. So that the games played stat isn't the most important for GameDay Squad, but we obviously want the best scoring player in our sides as often as possible. So the word is that he's now fully fit for Vegas. There was maybe some question marks to see how that shoulder was tracking and if he'd be ready to go for round 0. But by all reports, he'll be taking the field, which is great to see. And I think he'll be an absolute lock in everyone's team. What I think is most interesting for this season will be to see how he goes without his mate Jerome Luai alongside him. We've seen a couple of matches in the past 2 seasons where he has taken the field without Luai. He's had really nice scores of 63, 97, and 76. I think he needs to shoulder a bit more of the responsibility, particularly if he's got a younger half alongside him. We expect to see either maybe Jack Cole or Blaze Talangi in the 5'8 jersey alongside him. And these guys are pretty limited in terms of their time in first grade in that number 6 jersey. So if anything, you'd expect Nathan Cleary to shoulder a lot more of the responsibility, meaning a lot more base, a lot more kicking, a lot more hands on the footy, particularly on that 5th tackle, which is so important, where he's got 3 options with the footy in his hands. He'll show and go and slice through himself. He'll put a little kick in, or he'll pick the best ball, whether it's the edge player on his outside, the cutout to the center, or even that loopy long Harbour Bridge pass out to the winger. So he just does everything well, and he's probably that one player who will look to play their high up rarity card in the Challenger and the Classic competitions as well. So we might look to load up, plenty of bronzes in that Classic comp and get as high of a rarity as Cleary as possible, given he's just that out and out gun, and he's the one player likely to challenge that 100-point mark more often than not.
Yeah, I agree. Alrighty, so let's just go through a recap of our top 10 halves. So as you can see on screen, we've got Lockie Galvin at 10, Cherry Evans at 9, Dylan Brown, and then his teammate Mitch Moses at 8 and 7, Jaden Campbell there at 6, and then our top 5, Jamal Fogarty, Matt Burton, Jerome Hughes there to make up number 3, and then Hines at number 2, and then obviously we think the GOAT, Nathan Cleary, will be the number 1 half for 2025. Just on the top 10 there, is there one player that's not on that list for you, Stu, that you think might have a big year, who potentially could push someone out from that top 10?
Yeah, the first name that comes to mind is probably Jerome Luai. Now, we've mentioned his name a couple of times, obviously, when talking about Lockie Galvin and also Nathan Cleary, who he's moved away from this season. But he now partners Galvin at the Tigers, and we think he'll take on that organising 7 role. And he actually was really outstanding in that role last season when Cleary was out. He had that 5 or 6 week run in the 7 jersey where he absolutely killed it. He passed 50 on all but 1 occasions. He even topped 90 once. And when we compare that to his full season average of just 42.8, that stint, and it wasn't just a short stint, it was that 5 or 6 weeks where he averaged, a lot greater than 50. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him average inside the 50s. It's obviously, in a probably a backward step to a team like the Tigers, although they're improving. They're certainly no Penrith Panthers, but look, I'm not sure he can replicate those numbers in the 7 jersey at the Tigers like he performed with the Panthers, but he's definitely got more touches now that he's not playing alongside Nathan Cleary. He's definitely got more responsibility. He'll put boot to ball a lot more frequently, so we'll think that 240-meter average will skyrocket as well. A 50-plus performance wouldn't surprise, but if he's knocking on that maybe that top 5 or 6, it probably wouldn't shock me. So I think I've just got him outside my top 10 for now.
I was actually really hoping you were going to say Luke Brooks just to give him one more little shout out today. Alrighty, there you have it. That is a wrap for our second preseason show. That is the top 10 Game Day Squad halves for season 2025. Look, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comment who your top three halves are for the season. Did we get it right, or do you think that maybe Lockie Galvin pushes into the top 5? Also, new users, don't forget that you can sign up now. Use the promo code FBRL25. You get 3x9 player common packs. So plenty of cards there to rip. The excitement of ripping the pack is like no other, and that'll go a long way to get your classic and challenger squads filled, as we talked about. Stu, thanks as always, mate. We'll got one more preseason video before we jump into our live shows next week. It's getting very close. Look, that's one more show, and then we're there. The top 10 backs for 2025. Mate, have a good one. Thank you.
Can't wait, mate. Thanks, Dill. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.